Hello, everyone, and welcome to my business podcast. And this is Vatana, and in front of me is Brad Bargmeyer. And this is a podcast. We have the topics called Fair and Faith Trade Talk. Okay, that's the topic you can see is it up front here. And this is business and entrepreneurship for the kingdom of God. And the focus is to share, stories and insights of business and entrepreneurship from faith-based perspective. And our vision is to inspire and equip Christian entrepreneur to build business while making impacts in their community. Here am I with Brad Bargmeyer, an American safety professional. And wow, everyone, I have met Brad more than 17 years, over a decade, almost, how would you say, almost 2 decades, right? But 17 years ago, can you imagine 2008 when I was really, really young? Brad was here and we had a great time going, to a place where we can enjoy our time. But more than that is a great man fellowship. And I really thank God that Brad and other Christians brother, we had a great fellowship time, and yeah, that's 17 years ago. And by the way, Brad is safety professional, and he has 2 master degrees in business and political science and American politics. And I think it's better to let Brad tell us more about himself. So, Brad, the floor is yours.
Thank you. It's great to talk with you again. I
Yeah.
know we first met way out in the farm that you had built, and and took us out to show us what you were building out there, and had some great vegetable garden and
Yeah.
things. And so it's been great to keep in contact here for the last 17 years.
Yeah.
I'm in a different job because now I work in safety at the
Mm-hmm.
electric utility.
Yep.
Um, but it also I did graduate work in a seminary, a
Mm-hmm.
Christian ministry,
Yep. Yep.
as well as in business and public policy. And
Mm-hmm.
so, how we always try to bring Christian principles into how we treat people in business,
Yep.
but there's a lot of it in the law too,
Yep.
in accounting and in safety,
Mm-hmm.
where you really are supposed to treat people the right way.
Right.
And so, those fields that I've worked in finance and in safety. It really is applying biblical principles to how you
Right.
treat people.
Yep. That's awesome. Yep. So Brad and I agree to this topic, faith and fair business trade, and I know it's been a hot topic. It's been globally controversial. Am I expressing it correctly? Globally
I
controversial.
would say yes.
People agree, people argue, and small country argues, and Brad is American, and we're gonna hear more. And I am not American, and Brad's president by the name of Donald Trump recently imposed tariffs. I mean, if you're familiar with the word tariff, it's more of whatever we sell to American market, we have to pay something, which is the added prices on that. And it's been controversial and very, very political. But we are here as a Christian brothers, and we are trying to see opportunities, to inspire our Christian community to see this as a challenge and to pray and turn that into something that we will, bless, our community, and take this opportunity to learn and how God can use us as a vessel. And I understand during the talk, and I don't speak English as my first language. I may make mistakes, and Brad, he speak English perfectly, and that's impressive. So we have looked through a couple of questions, and some of the questions we are, very selective, and we're trying to kind of maneuver, the ideas of what's the word, Brett? Help me.
With through well, kind of how the tariffs came about,
Yep.
because tariffs are a political tool,
Right.
um, but it's also at a basic level. The moment we're in now is people who feel that they've been treated unfairly.
Right, right. Yeah, I do hear that. And there are people who may disagree, Brad, politically. I know, politics really divides things. And
Yes.
I am not here to cause, much of the disagreement and people feel something. But you've got your president on in the office making decisions, and it's been impact not just America but globally, and people see the difficult time short term. People see long term benefits, but the short term it may affects, and now I like to ask you, Brad Bargmeyer, the first question. First question. Oh, by the way, this is midnight, and while I'm asking you, I'm feeling fall asleep. And Brad is
I'm
in the
fine.
morning. Wait, Brad, you're joining us from where? The
Los,
California,
Los, not Los Angeles.
Los Angeles, California, the states in America. Okay, and what time is it now, sir?
It's
That's
now 10 a.m. in Los Angeles.
10 a.m. This is 12 a.m. We're only 2 hours different, but you're in the morning. Wait, p.m. right? Oh no, 10
No,
a.m.
a.m.
Right.
14 hours difference.
Well, you're behind us. We are going to sleep,
Yes.
and you're starting your day. Interesting.
Yes.
Wow, the world is so interesting. All right. So, Brett, first question for you: do you think these tariffs reflects fair or unjust trade practice from biblical standpoint?
Okay, so one of the key parts that I think you see in the Bible a lot is how do you treat your workers?
Mm.
And really, the root cause of this whole tariff thing is how people perceive workers being treated.
Yeah.
There are many Americans who feel that they've been treated unfairly
Mm-hmm.
by world trade practices because other countries treat their workers unfairly.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is actually, that's their perception. Now, they haven't visited these countries, but their perception is that goods are being imported into the United States by companies who treat their workers very, very poorly.
Mm.
And so they think that that's an unfair trade practice. And so many Americans who used to work in manufacturing, they lost their jobs.
Mm.
So our political situation today is they voted for the guy who promised to stand up for their jobs
Yep. Yep.
that they had lost. And so the unfairness question is a very good one because it really gets into what different people feel.
Right.
Um, if everyone treated their workers the same, then you probably could have free trade and it would be fine because everyone's treated the same.
Mm.
Um, and it's changed a lot over the last 20 years. And I've visited lots of countries, and you can see that really things have changed quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And so those of us who believe in free trade with no tariffs,
Mm-hmm.
we see that lots of people get better and get better. Lots of workers' lives gets better because there's lots of trade.
Mm.
However, as things change and people lose their jobs, especially factory jobs,
Mm-hmm.
they feel that it must be unfair because I've lost my job.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and that's the root cause of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, but between employers and employees.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, and
And
treating
so,
fairly to them and making sure they are treating well. And your point is not only in America, but it's across the globe, right?
yes.
There are some treatment of employers and employees. And what does the Bible says about that?
Well, the Bible says you should definitely treat your employees well. You should treat them fairly. There are lots of stories
Yep,
in both the
I
Old and New
agree.
Testament
Yep, I agree.
about he is a just man
Yep,
who treated all of his.
yep,
Now in the Bible sometimes they use the word servants,
yep,
and we don't necessarily use in English they use that term.
yeah,
That's not it's not the same when you're paying people cash.
yep,
But there's lots of examples of commerce where they're
yep,
exchanging money for work in the Bible. And there's lots of stories in the Bible about who is cruel to their workers versus
yep,
who is just and generous. Um,
yep,
and so that informs
mm-hmm.
how management theory.
Yep, I see. You know, that reminded me when you were talking about treatment, and correct me if I'm wrong. And I read piece of the news from, I don't know, I can't remember where I read it, but it seems like your president was talking to a in a region about that you're treating your farmer badly. Okay, I think probably you know where it is. But then he kind of like giving some compassion over farmers that who work hard, you know, and that's really a great message, you know, to the government to look at, you know, a way how we can treat people who are important to their economy. So yeah, it's just you really everyone as we know that governments and government are right now discussing finding ways, you know, to deal the case, and we are fear concern about the next move and the consequences. And we understand that United States is such a huge market and big country, producing, consuming, and we know Cambodia sells a lot to America. And recently, the president has imposed about 97%, 40%, 47%, right, in response to what you know, the claims that Cambodia has been placing the tariff 97%. And we understand this is political geography, and you know, but I like to really hear from Brad Bargmeyer regarding, you know, the negotiation. And of course, at the end, we want lives to be treated better, especially the employee, especially those that are worth being treated well. And we are not trigger any discrimination against rich and poor, but you know, as a Christian brother and sister, we want to take care of the need of the poor. And as the politicians are trying to find way to solve the political issues, economic issue, tariff, trade barrier, I'd like to hear from Brad with his master degrees in political science and American politics. And let's say we have, if you know, recently my prime minister also sent our letters to your president, you know, wanting to negotiate and do all of this. And what are some of the tips? What are some of, you know, I don't know, stories or case studies that you know a better way to talk, to discuss with policy makers, economists, and what were some of the great tips that you like to give Cambodia? Brad, the floor is yours.
Okay, so there are these negotiations happen on two different levels.
Okay.
Personal level and on the policy level. So on the personal level, our president wrote a book called Art of the Deal, and he likes to negotiate deals. That is his favorite thing to do. Mm-hmm. And so several countries, they understand this. They read his book. And so the first thing they did is they immediately said, let's talk about creating a deal. And so they didn't get angry and say terrible things. They just said, we can make a deal. And so, and those countries that in the first 12 hours were Argentina, Japan, Vietnam, Israel, and I think Cambodia reached out also. But Argentina flew there and has already had their meeting in the White House. Oh. But that's because they agree on policy. Mm. And Argentina's president came to Trump's inauguration because they agree on so much. And so policy-wise, because there's so much agreement, it's easy for that personal discussion where they say, let's cut tariffs to nothing. And that's the policy piece to start with. And but it's also the personal piece of, we can do a deal. That's what he responds to best. Japan is like that also because Trump personally was good friends with Shinzo Abe, mm-hmm. who was unfortunately assassinated. Yeah. They were close friends, and so he still feels very warmly towards Japan. Mm-hmm. But Japan also is, we can have no tariffs. Same with Israel. We can have no tariffs. Let's create a deal. And that is a very easy way to start the conversation. Now, after that, opening the conversation, the question is, are people's workers being treated fairly? And so what countries like Vietnam and Cambodia need to do is show that workers in their countries are being treated fairly, and that they should not be penalized because their prices are lower. And so, and Vietnam already called Trump 2 days ago. They immediately were on the phone. And they're also a small country that is, developing. And so there's an opportunity to say, well, we're trying to help get jobs with things that you can't automate. And so if you think about Tesla as the opposite end, Tesla's factories are very automated. So it's all engineers building robots, and the robots build the machines. But there's lots of other things when you're sewing, like what we wear here. A lot of clothing is made in places like Cambodia and Vietnam, where human beings are sewing it. And so the policy thing is showing countries that we treat our workers fairly when they're sewing. And that gets into a little bit of the Christian management also. That are you treating your workers fairly, your own workers? Could you have an American president walk into your factory today and see happy employees who feel they're being treated well? Because politicians like to go to factories, right? And if they walk into the factory right now, will people be happy to greet them and things like that? Like when I visited your farm, everyone was happy. And so I knew that you were doing a good job because of the way, people were excited and talking about, this is what we're building.
That's awesome, Brad. Hey, I like the 3P you just mentioned, Brad. Well, Mayor, policies, personal and people care. So wow, that's wonderful. I'm hoping that our videos will be being viewed by some policies makers between the two countries, and not the two countries. I'm sure, especially from over here, Cambodia, we are smaller than United States, and hoping that the message can reach out, to see for these policies, personal and people, caring for people. When we approach the president, we care about the people, we love the people, and we just want to do the best for them. Please, can we set the deal? And of course, at the end, it's about people, loving the people, caring for the people. And this is biblical, right? Correct, Brad? Brad, yes? That's awesome. Thank you so much. Okay, everyone, we're coming to almost the end of our podcast. We are hoping you are really enjoying. If you like this podcast video with me, Vartanas from Cambodia, and Brad Bargmeyer, the safety professional from Los Angeles, California, the United States of America, with the topics called Fair and Faith, Fair and Faith Business Talk. Share this video to, others, and let them hear and, be a blessing. So Brad and I agree about 3P, the negotiating tips. If governments wanted, maybe they have better other ideas of how to approach. But listening to Brad's ideas, we found 3Ps: policies, personal, and people, which is we care about the people. And Brad has some other words that he'd like to add. So Brad, take the mic and talk, sir.
Okay, so one of the policy things that I think is important is you look at what's happening in Argentina.
Right.
And that is kind of the prevailing idea that's happening in the United States. It doesn't mean everyone agrees, but policy-wise, you can study their example because it's another country where they were elected and they made dramatic changes because inflation was crushing the country, and that was hurting people everywhere. And so you can study it, and that it's a worthwhile thing to read and study because because the president is an economist and he has this theory, it's not a new theory, it's very old, but he actually implemented it. He got elected, he pitched saying, if you elect me, I will do this. And everyone was surprised when he won, and he actually did it. And so you have to think about not just say what's best for government workers, but what's best for everyone. And that gets into a lot of where you get broad-based prosperity in your country. And so it's worth studying that to understand it, because America's basically trying the same thing Argentina did. But we're much bigger, so it's much scarier for people. And it is scary for people, and you have to acknowledge that people do feel scared because it's a big change. Um, the second part of that is, though, how does a manager or an entrepreneur treat people? And this is where my profession of safety matters, because the company I work in insists that people work safely. They insist that it means managers must organize the work in a way that's safe for people, so people don't get hurt. And that's something any entrepreneur can do, no matter how small their company is. Are they organizing the work in a way that is safe and everyone goes home to their family uninjured at the end of the day? The other part of that is the financial integrity. Are you doing what's right? Are you honoring your word with money? Are you paying people what you promised? Are you paying your vendors what you promised when you promised? All of that is biblical integrity, that in the West, a lot of that is in the law. Those biblical principles are in the law for both safety and financial integrity. But it's biblical. And even when I visit places like Cambodia and Thailand, you meet entrepreneurs who are running their organization following those principles of biblical integrity. And that gives them a better workforce. It means their people do better, and their people can contribute to their success. And in the West, it was, it took a long time to get there. It was a conflict, but like the companies that I've worked for, they insist upon that integrity. But there's also other companies that don't, and we warn people, don't go to work for them, because they're not operating with integrity. And then you see those companies collapse, and they're on the page of the Wall Street Journal as this giant company has collapsed. And then the companies with integrity don't collapse. And
Tell us more about the integrity.
Okay. So the integrity, if you look at biblical principles, are you paying people what you promise them? Are you being honest that it's a good product? That when you say this is a good product, that you deliver what you promise. And so are you keeping your word? There's lots in the book of Proverbs about that, about being honest in dealings, being a fair judge, not taking bribes, things like that. A lot of that is biblical, and that goes into, it's really how a lot of Western economic laws were created from those principles. And so that it's directly related to the prosperity of a community and of a nation.
Okay. I have a question regarding the society disinformation, and people may not believe what you say, but I think it's globally acknowledged. I believe that if you have a reputation well known by many across the globe, it's because of reputation, because everyone like the product or services. But let's say we don't know you, we don't know your product, we don't know your service, and we still feel somehow in some way that may not use the right words to how do I put this, like we don't really believe that there is integrity, or maybe we don't think it exists in term, for in especially really in the political arena, when we said, well, he's trying to inject the integrity, just an example, right? But he doesn't really have integrity. So it's people can take it into the political arena some way and somehow.
So
How would
there,
you speak to people who may not believe or may not like the term? You know what I mean? Like, of
I
course,
have there's two examples that I think work in every country: Coca-Cola
yep,
and cell phone companies.
yep,
In any country you go to, you have both of those things.
yeah,
Now, Coca-Cola is an example of a big company because they're extremely demanding on who they allow to bottle their product.
mm-hmm,
They have all of these quality requirements. They have all of these rules you must follow, and they tightly control it because they control the syrup. And if the local company doesn't have integrity,
yep,
they won't sell them the syrup, so you can't make it. And
right,
so all over the world, you can buy a Coke, and it's the same. It's not quite the
yep,
same.
yep,
Mexican Coke is better than American Coke, but they are so demanding on their integrity that they have consistency all over the world. Even
consistency,
even in Haiti, I can
yep,
buy a Coke in Haiti and know it's good. And I did. I visited Haiti.
right. It's
And
what they say,
so
what it is. They say,
it is what they say. All right.
okay,
Now, another thing that's not an American product is a lot of cell phone companies have figured this out. And you can go all over the world and the cell phone company has to be doing operating with integrity.
yep,
And how you saw that was in many countries they started using cell phones to make payments because maybe they don't trust cash, maybe they don't trust banks. But all over the world, people put money on their cell phone account and use it to make payments.
mm,
And I saw that in Cambodia, you see that in Kenya, you see that everywhere. But at the core of that, that cell phone company has to act with integrity or no one would do it.
wow, I like it. Wow, I forgot that you got master degree in business.
Yes.
Wow,
And so those are examples of how you see it. And I use that because it doesn't matter what country you go to,
yep,
you'll find that. And some of those cell phone companies are European, but they impose those same rules the same
mm,
way Coca-Cola did, right? And so, but then they have local dealers everywhere. You can walk through Kibera, which is a slum in Kenya,
yep,
in Nairobi, and there's all these little cell phone shops.
mm.
And you can give them money, and they will put money on your phone, and it's there. And what you pay them is on your phone. There's integrity.
Wow, wow, that's
And
awesome. I
so,
like that. Yep, yep, that's
yeah,
cool.
and I saw it in Cambodia when people were paying on their phones.
Yep.
But if they didn't act with integrity,
Mm-hmm.
none of that would work.
Yes, yes, I agree. I agree. Integrity. This is the American value. You know, Brad Mayer. Just so you know that we are praying that the negotiation will be successful and it will benefit. It will create mutual benefit, and we're praying for a better way to deal business with American counterpart, and we're looking forward to having more of these. American investors coming, not just only the investor, but Christian business investor, Christian business people coming over and exchange and learn. For me, I'm just a younger generation and really want to learn, about doing business with integrity. So, folks, and we understand that right now we're almost coming to the end of the podcast, but this fair and faith business talk. And we are hoping that some ideas, some great tips from Brad Mayer, the safety professional with master degrees in business and political science, has been such a blessing for all of us. We're hoping that it will be a great blessing to you. Um, Before we end the podcast, I really want to ask Brad regarding the what we are looking and seeing as a challenge is whether or not this will offer opportunity, especially for the younger entrepreneur, to rise up to this. And we're looking forward actually to the success of the talk, and then looking forward to more of the American business investors coming with integrity and teach us and show us, and all the end, make lives better, and people will, come to know the Lord as we are doing business aligned with God's principle and making great impacts in our community. So, Brad, last question: Do these challenges offer any opportunity for the younger generation, especially the entrepreneurs that want to follow God's principles and do business and make impacts in their community?
I think so. And when you ask that question, it makes me think of some time I spent in Nairobi in Kenya,
Mm-hmm.
where we asked people what they wanted to do in their future, students.
Yep.
And in Nairobi, many of them want to be entrepreneurs.
Yep.
And they had all sorts of ideas from um, restaurants to driving to some of them were tourist based. But there's also a need for like people who can weld, people who can do plumbing and electrical. In the United States, many of those people are small businessmen and they
Yep.
learn the skills and they run their own entrepreneurial business. Running it with integrity means their work lasts for years.
Yep.
And so that's a great way to start with entrepreneur, start as an entrepreneur,
Yep.
is those skilled trades as well. And much of the learning is available for free on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
It's in English, so you have to learn English first. But you can learn how to weld and how to run a welding company or an air conditioning
Mm-hmm.
company and things like that. And then getting the parts. And I know when I was in Cambodia, like the air conditioners, many of them were Japanese, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so, how do you maintain them? Who is the engineer that fixes them? And so, that's a great entrepreneurial activity. If I was teaching anyone, I would say develop skilled trade because there's a shortage all over the world of the skilled trades. And so, I have two neighbors who are electricians,
Mm-hmm.
who they own houses here in the same street as me. And so but they're very good at it. They're better than I am at those skilled trades. Um, Tourism is an easy one because it's very visible. Restaurants and food is very easy because we all eat and we all can cook, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so skilled trades is, I think, another one. It's also very hard to outsource to another country. If I need a plumber, we're not bringing in a plumber from China. We're bringing in someone who lives here. The person who takes care of my yard when I'm too busy, all the trees, he owns a house, over by the grocery store about a mile away from me.
Mm-hmm.
He's from Mexico, but he's lived here a very long time, and so he owns his business and he owns all of his own tools and
Mm-hmm.
equipment as an entrepreneur. Um, Mechanics who fix, go motos and other vehicles and things. Those are learned skills. And all of that, the challenge with tariffs is it makes parts more expensive, but the
Mm-hmm.
knowledge in your head for how to do things,
Right.
you can't take that away.
Exactly.
What's happening in the United States is that I think we've shifted too much to going to college and doing PowerPoints and making software games,
Yep. Mm-hmm.
and less people know how to do the mechanical work.
Mm.
And then they can't fix things anymore. They just throw it away and buy a new one.
Yep.
And that's part of this tariff debate is if you can buy a new one for $20,
Mm.
why would you spend $30 fixing it?
Mm.
And so you have this disposable economy because things are made cheaply overseas, but they're made cheaply so you throw it away.
Mm.
If you buy good quality, I mean, I have a Toyota truck, like a Hilux.
Mm-hmm.
It's 17 years old, and um, and it's great. It was built when I went to Cambodia. It
Quite a
was built
while.
in California,
17
and I bought
years.
it
Quite a
used.
while. Yeah.
But a Hilux, the Hilux, and I know there's people in
Toyota.
Cambodia.
To-
Hilux, huh?
Toyota, right?
Toyota,
Yeah.
yes. They built great
Excellent.
quality,
Yep. Yep.
great integrity as a company.
Yep. Yep. That's
And
great.
so
Wonderful. Wow.
you can't, it's very hard to compete. Well, I mean, that's why their products endure.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, there are cheaper vehicles than
Mm-hmm.
Toyotas, but they don't last.
Right.
And a lot of American vehicles don't last as well as Toyotas.
Ooh.
And so a lot of American companies lost jobs and factories because Toyota was better,
Hmm.
really better. And so Americans had to get better at it.
Right.
And so Tesla is an American company, with a completely different philosophy of building vehicles. All electric,
Ole.
but you know,
Yeah.
but he also is what he's going to space. He SpaceX is going to spend delivering 90% of the capability to space this year in the whole world.
Wow. Wow.
And then China's next. So SpaceX is 90%, then China is like 6%. Because an entrepreneur has ideas. But he's the same guy who invented PayPal, right?
Yeah.
And so there's opportunities for entrepreneurs to think of completely new ways of doing business.
Yep. Yep.
And I saw it in Cambodia where they were using phones to pay for things. We didn't have that in the US then. We had credit cards.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, what is that? Oh, that's different. And so we had to learn how to do that. That was a good entrepreneurial decision.
Yeah.
I think solar is a great thing because you're not worrying about the big power company. You can have solar locally.
Yep.
And that is something you can do in the tropics pretty well. Solar works great here in Southern California, but it doesn't work up north like where it snows.
You're right. That's right. Yeah. We need solar. Yeah. We need the sunshine. Yep. I
Uh,
like that. I
but we're
like that. Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, and so think of there's all those new things that
Yep.
you can do, but you have to think about what's a problem that I can fix and maybe find a way to fix it.
Business
And
aspect. Wonderful. Yep. This
yeah,
is awesome.
and lots of those ideas are available on the internet in English.
Yep.
So if you learn English, you can search
Right.
and get ideas
Yep.
and then find ways to do it.
Right.
And so that's the advantage of being bilingual.
Right. That's awesome. Hey, I know we are coming to the end right now, and I really appreciate your being here almost an hour and joining with the Fair and Face Trade Talk. And again, we're hoping that this is a blessing, a message for our Christian brothers and sisters in the business and entrepreneurship journey, that making jobs, creating jobs for people, and we are aware that what is coming up next may be a bit of a challenge. But as Brad Bargmeyer was saying that we always find a challenge, into opportunity where we can just look at the issues, but not looking at the issue, but look at the solution, bring up something that we can solve the issues, and that's creating business, that just creating jobs for people. So once again, really appreciate your being here, listening, and hoping that the video become into the blessing, and then you can share to others. And so Brad, do you have any words to encourage our Christians, brothers and sisters who are doing their best, preparing whatever happened, whether it's fear, but instead of going with fear, but encourage for faith, what is coming up next? Any words that you have for people?
Yeah, when I look at countries like South Korea that used to also be poor. I mean, America used to be very poor too, and South Korea is very Christian now. But it's a lot of those principles. It doesn't matter what the culture is. What matters is that it works everywhere, and so the way you treat people works everywhere, and that is a lot in there that helps families build prosperity. And so I think that learning the principles and aplying the principles in life goes a long way to, no matter what point you start with, there's always people watching how you treat others, and they're looking for those who will be with integrity that they can give more to and give more responsibility to and things, and people are looking for that. And so, but even, much of the Bible is, you have very little to start with. And it's like, where do you begin? And people who advance because of their integrity and because of their faithfulness and keeping the promise to do what they say they're going to do.
I'm hoping, I'm looking forward to see your next availability with your time.
Mhm.
And I'm really, really much interested in hearing more about the business aspect, especially for this podcast, business and entrepreneurship. And we really want to inspire and encourage, our Christians, brothers and sisters to do their business journey that align with God's principle while making impact in their community. So I'm sure you've got a lot of talents and gifts to share, Brad. That's awesome. Hey, you have a wonderful days, and I really want to say thank you for you all being with us, and thank you very much. I will see you with the next podcast. All right. Bye bye from
Okay.
Cambodia, and thanks, Brad Mayer, for joining.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.